Coming up on Network Africa, President Muhammadu Buhari meets with UK Prime Minister Theresa May in London. The Israeli government frees over 200 African migrants from prison. Thousands of the world's leading experts on malaria attended a 5-day conference focused on progress towards eradicating the disease. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Temitope Fagbemi. We begin in Europe, where Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has met with UK Prime Minister Theresa May in London. The talks between the two leaders comes ahead of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting this week. Mrs. May received the Nigerian President this afternoon at her official residence, number 10 Downing Street. President Buhari thanked the Prime Minister for Britain's efforts at training the Nigerian army to fight Boko Haram insurgents. This is one of the key meetings the President will be holding in the UK, including another with the Chief Executive of Royal Dutch Shell, Ben van Beurden. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump will also be hosting President Buhari in Washington, D.C. on April 30. The White House statement also announced that the two leaders will be discussing promoting economic growth and reforms, fighting terrorism and other threats to peace and security, and building on Nigeria's role as a democratic leader in Africa. President Buhari was the first African leader President Trump called on phone following his inauguration as the U.S. president. Former U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson also visited Nigeria in February in a 5-country African tour embarked upon by any official of the Trump administration. Collaborative efforts among African nations and the globe will go a long way towards tackling transnational crimes. That's the fallout of discussions at the 2018 African Land Forces Summit with the theme, Unity is Strength, Combating Africa's Security Challenges in the 21st Century and Beyond. The Chief of Army Staff, General Tukur Buratai, and the Vice Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army, General James McConville, agreed that countries should join forces to fight crime.
Combating the menace of Boko Haram and other violent extremist organizations will require collaborative efforts. Therefore, I want to emphasize that our collective action and inaction will have an impact on our efforts to ensure safety and stability to our individual countries, Africa, and the world in general. I therefore urge all of us to bring to bear our wealth of experience and expertise to provide solutions to our security problems. Let me, at this point, reaffirm the Nigerian Army's unflinching commitment to take lead roles in Africa towards ensuring peace, security, and sustainable development.
The U.S. Army and the United States is committed to working alongside our African allies and partners to strengthen our collective response to the challenges that we face today. The theme of this year's summit, Unity is Strength, is particularly appropriate when we look at the character of events going on in the world today. And although many of us are land forces commanders or leaders, in the future, we will be contested in every domain. We'll be contested on the land. We'll be contested in the air, at sea, in space, and in the cyber domain. In this future environment, interoperability across allies and partners is even more critical than it is today. The only way we can defeat our adversaries and threats is by working together and forming strong alliances and partnerships that will withstand the test of adverse and challenging circumstances.
Well, news just in says a German engineer working with a construction company in Kano State here in Nigeria has been kidnapped. The man, identified as Michael Kremser, was forcefully taken away after a policeman assigned to provide him with security was shot and killed by the attackers. The incident was said to have occurred in the early hours of today as the workers were on their way to resume work at the construction site in the city. The Kano State Police Command confirmed the attack, saying it was carried out by 5 men who came in their own vehicle and opened fire on another vehicle conveying the German engineer and his security aide. In the Middle East, Israel has freed over 200 African migrants from prison after it missed a court deadline to deport them. The government is still negotiating with a third country believed to be Uganda to take in the migrants who come from Eritrea and Sudan. Israel's Supreme Court had given Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government until Sunday to finalize an agreement it was working on to deport some of the migrants. Without an agreement, the authorities must release those held at Saharonim prison. Earlier, Mr. Netanyahu backed away from an agreement with the United Nations Refugee Agency to resolve the fate of 37,000 migrants in the country. Last week, Uganda announced that it will accept 500 of those migrants.